Bill Bachman here, yet another lesson. This lesson is going to be about rudiment inversions. We're going to look at some of the typical shopping spree rudiments, like flam drags, cheese, flam 5, Chatcha, cheese Chatcha, with 3 partials, and we're going to move the rudiment to different places. So this sort of relates to the 4-2-1 grid exercise, but we're going to grid it in a different way. So, for instance, here's a flam accent. Now, what if I moved the flam to the second partial of the 3, but kept the accent on the first? We have a Chatcha, as in Chatcha, Chatcha, Chatcha. So, right? As I get faster, I'm going to have to do the no chop, flop, and drop, is what I call it, where you just sort of, with that hand. So, Chatcha. Now, what if we move the flam to the third partial? We'll have ta-da-cha, as in ta-da-cha, ta-da-cha. So here, we'll need to use a molar whip and stop motion because you're playing all these notes right before the accent. There's not enough time to lift the stick. So, there we go. And keep in mind, we are playing alternating sticking. If we go back to the Chatcha, it's not right and then another right and a right. You have to hit them in the order where it's right, left, flam, right. Okay? So that's a little tricky, but take it slow with the fast tempos technique and you'll get it. As in, because if you practice that like that, stopping the stick, you can do it 4 hours a day, and in a couple months, you'll be a little bit faster. But you will not be ready to play that. So that is the flam accent. So if I take, I'll just use the flam accent as a check pattern, and then I'll put the flam on 1, 2, and 3. So that's going to look like this. Now, we can do the same thing with a flam drag. And we're not going to take the time to dissect each one of these, but it may help to write some of them out. So a flam drag in normal situation. Now if we move to the flam to the second partial, everything shifts. Okay, and then to the third, it'll shift again. So the drag will actually jump back over to the first note. So a flam drag on 1, 2, and 3. Now cheese, same thing. I'll just move the cheese on each spot. Whenever the flam is on the second partial, you have to do the no chop, flop, and drop, where you got to have a lot of finesse. You just sort of ba-ba-ba, let it fall down. Whenever the flam is on the third partial, you have to do that molar whip and stop, where you kind of snap it coming from the forearm, since you'd be asking way too much of your wrist and it just won't work. So now flam 5 on 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, I'm going to step it up a little bit. The next one we're going to look at is the Chatcha. And this one is especially hard because there are 2 flams. So Chatcha is an onomatopoeia. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Thank me later. It is. Okay. Now, if we move it to the second, instead of Chatcha, if we move it to here, this has to loop back, so you have Chatcha. Now these do have to alternate, so it's going to be right, left, right. If you want to learn these, you have to go slow and emulate the fast tempos technique with some nice flop, no chop, and drop. So don't be so concerned about heights. You got to let that go. Now, if we move it to the third partial, the Chatcha becomes Chatcha. Now here, it's kind of like playing alternating flams with the molar whip and flop, but we also need to just pop out little bits of accents within that. So this is the royal pain in the butt, but if you can do it, you'll be better off. So here's a Chatcha on 1, 2, and 3. Now, let's look at the cheese Chatcha. We're just going to add a cheese to the first beat. So the first one, no problem. Well, problem, but if you get it, you'll get it. Now we're going to make it infinitely harder, just because that's what we do. We're going to move it to the second partial. So instead of cheese.chut, we move these two flams here, and this guy comes back over. So now you have chut cheese, chut cheese, chut cheese. So again, don't worry about your stick heights here. If you practice, you may still never play quickly. So the third, we're going to move it again. So ta-cha cheese, ta-cha cheese. Again, you got to go to that sort of floppy molar whip and flop, but then you also have to squeeze in, mainly from that index finger, a little diddle. So it's going to look like, okay? Now, let me put the cheese Chatcha on 1, 2, and 3. It's just that easy. Okay, it's actually kind of hard, but it's all finesse. Nothing's hard if you know how to do it. So now, the big finish, I'm going to play all of these rudiments one after another. This is actually in my book, Rudimental Logic, published by Row-Loff.com. It's the second to last exercise. The last one's harder. And this one is called Frederick's, and it basically just isolates each of those shopping spree typical rudiments in 1, 2, and 3 positions. So here it goes. And there you go. So that's Frederick's. It's not easy, but if you practice smart, it will become easy. Nothing's really hard if you know how to do it. Take the time, get 1,000, tens of thousands of repetitions using the faster tempos technique at a slow, doable pace, and just do it for 20 minutes straight, and then you will get faster much more quickly by doing that. And if you can play all these exercises, you'll become a grid master in no time, and you really won't pretty much ever get tripped up on any flam rudiments that anybody throws your way. And really, that's the idea. So there you go. Have fun with it.